Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast here from Desert Oasis. It is going to be FunkYou versus Fargo, and I hope I don't mess saying that up. iFunkYou. Yeah, that's going to be kind of difficult, and don't laugh at me. Anyways, we have iFunkYou spawning over here as the red Terran. I'm just going to call this red versus blue, or try to call red versus blue, and Fargo as the blue Terran over here on the north side. So Desert Oasis, one of the old maps that have been out here for quite some time. I'm looking for more of the new 1v1 or the new 1v1 maps, and perhaps some of the new 2v2 maps as well. I do not see them. Fargo going for a standard supply depot being built next to this command center, so did not want to lose as many minerals trying to create a wall off. However, iFunkYou now going to go ahead and move on out with that SCV in order to do some scouting, also building that supply depot relatively close to that command center in order to make sure that that SCV can continue mining very quickly. We already have an SCV coming out from Fargo as well, so Fargo coming out with an SCV in order to do some scouting. Now, both players looking to build a pretty standard build. There is a refinery being placed down by Fargo, so Fargo perhaps trying to do some sort of an earlier tech. Banshees I know are very popular on this map just because of the short flight distance between these two locations. Also, Reapers are fairly used on this map, but Reapers are very shortly outlived, as a Terran player can easily tech up to Marauders and be able to push back that Reaper harassment. So generally it's not really worth the amount of time and energy to do a Reaper harassment unless you have a very strong Reaper harassment build. Fargo SCV trying to do a little bit more damage towards that last one SCV, not really working. Command center now being upgraded to an orbital command. Same thing over here with Red's. With Red's command center as well, going to be upgraded to an orbital command. SCV trying to dish out some damage, may get a single kill off. That one SCV down to 10 hit points, now being pulled back and trying to get pulled away. Now a single Marine, however, coming in to shoot down that SCV, and down it goes. So that Marine getting that last kill. We have an SCV still doing some scouting, and now we have a factory being put down. So a very early factory, no tech lab yet, and both players' armies are relatively small. However, Fargo is only mining with 12 harvesters compared to 15, and also getting double gas. That's pretty curious at this stage in the game, why anyone would go for double gas this early unless he's trying to tech the Banshees, because you generally don't need that much gas in order to go for a siege tech build. And on top of that, I still don't see a tech lab, so if this build is exactly perfect, he's going to try to drop down a starport and then build a tech lab right with one of his other buildings, and then just try to get as fast as possible. Yeah, going to go ahead and get this starport down and building a tech lab off of the factory. So a blue Terran now just trying to get that early factory, get that tech lab, and perhaps try to tech the Banshees. We'll see how iFunkYou is going to counteract this. iFunkYou getting a reactor on this barracks. Normally I don't see reactors on a barracks in a Terran versus Terran matchup. Marines not nearly that strong. iFunkYou now also getting a reactor on this factory as well, so he may be trying to go for a starport tech lab reactor swap, now producing double Marines. We have a Hell factory now flying on out, perhaps going to do some scouting, and yes, a starport lifting off, going to go ahead and grab that tech lab and then try to... Is he going to research Cloak or produce a Banshee first? Researching Cloak. So getting that Cloak very early, and now going to be producing that Banshee as well. That Cloak research, I believe, takes 110 units of time. Banshees take 60 units of time to build. So there's going to be some amount of time before that Banshee does in fact have enough energy. Let Starport now lifting off. Going to go ahead and drop back down. And very nicely done. Starport going to go ahead and add on this reactor. That reactor will allow it to be able to produce double Vikings, as it looks as though the red Terran player is expecting some sort of Banshee harassment. I don't think he's going to be really ready for this early Cloak though, as he started researching the Cloak before that Banshee was before he queued up that first Banshee. The Banshee, however, will have very low energy, since it's just going to be completed, sitting on 50 energy as it comes out of that starport, and now moving on out. Marines coming in, trying to take down that factory. Vikings going to... Oh no, I do not know the Fargo was able to catch those Vikings in action. And now we have this Banshee flying in. So that Banshee sitting in with 61 energy, the Cloak nearing completion. So the Banshee may be able to come in and get a couple kills off. Marines now going to come on over and try to take down this Banshee. Banshee now pulling away, and it does not yet have cloak. Gonna try to start taking down some of these units, taking down that one SCV, able to take down the SCV, and now cloaked. Those Vikings, however, are unable to really push back against this single, and now this Banshee able to just rack up those kills now, trying to take down more and more of those SCVs. iFunkYou is just losing a lot of workers, down to 21 harvesters, gonna lose another SCV, continuing to lose more. That Banshee up to 10 kills, already at the rank of Sergeant. Not enough energy on that Orbital Command yet in order to do a little bit of a scanner sweep, trying to come in, and now that missile turret is in fact up. Banshee pulling away, and it looks as though that Viking was not able to click on top of that Banshee, as that Banshee is now going to run out of energy and decloak. The second Banshee that was being built has now been completed, gonna come in with 60 energy. However, those Vikings are gonna be able to intercept it maybe able to intercept it, taking 3 hits so quickly, doesn't even get the cloak off. So that was a very, very bad play by Fargo. Fargo losing a very expensive Banshee very early in the game. Army-wise, we have iFunkYou sitting on 800, while Fargo sitting on 450. Harvester-wise, though, however, Fargo sitting on 24 harvesters versus the Red Terran 16. So a definite advantage to Fargo at this stage. Now, Fargo moving around with that Banshee. The Banshee has 14 kills, rank of Sergeant, and perhaps going to try to move on out a little bit more. The Vikings now on the move, and now we have a couple Marines and a Siege Tank coming in from iFunkYou. So that Siege Tank will be able to do a lot of harassment. And these Vikings now coming into that ground mode, able to dish out a little bit of damage, get a couple kills off, take down some of these SCVs, and now with that Siege Tank on this backside, on the north side of this base, should be able to siege up here and perhaps try taking down some of these SCVs. Vikings will offer the necessary sight onto that high ground. So we'll see how that's really going to work, whether or not it's going to really be very fruitful. Single Siege Tank pushing in, able to, I guess, trying to supply lock Fargo. Fargo, however, coming in with a single Siege Tank. Marines trying to shoot down that Viking. Viking will get, able to escape with only 5 hit points. Single Siege Tank sitting over here. Siege Tank research has been completed. I'm not quite sure what the range is on there. Just far enough. Fargo unable to see that Siege Tank, however, as it's just out of that sight range, and now continuing to push. Fargo does not yet have Siege Tank on his Siege Tanks, and going to continue to push out even further. Marines now coming in, but getting splatted by that one single Siege Tank. Siege Tank already getting up to 4 kills, going to get up to 5 kills very soon. There it goes, 5 kills, and now those Vikings continuing to push. Once again, another medevac coming in from Fargo as well. So that medevac coming in from Fargo perhaps wants to do a little bit of harassment. Single Banshee now coming in as well. Vikings trying to chase it down. But what is this? How's this going to happen? Will that Siege Tank? No, Siege Tank still does not have Siege Tech yet. So that's a really delayed of mistake by Fargo. Fargo having 3 to 4 Siege Tanks without that Siege Tech, and may end up losing these units very, very easily. Vikings now coming into that ground mode, going to start focusing down these units. The Vikings having a very, very high rate of attack, using those pure numbers and able to take down that Siege Tank. I wonder what would win in a fight. 2 Siege Tanks or 3 Vikings, as that is about the same cost in food. That was what, 4 Vikings versus 3 Siege Tanks, and only one of those Vikings were taken down, so that's a pretty significant loss. Fargo now coming in with a single Banshee, trying to take down that Siege Tank, and now also dropping a missile turret, so that missile turret will be able to offer a little bit of sight. Siege Tank may not be able to take down that one last building. Able to take down that SCV, however. However, the Banshee quickly getting taken down by a quick scan. So iFunkYou doing a good job just keeping the pressure up this whole entire game. Fargo continuing to use these Banshees and these Siege Tanks. However, Vikings and Siege Tanks are continually dominating the ground and the air. Taking a look at the units, we have 2 Siege Tanks and 5 Vikings versus 1 Siege Tank and 1 Banshee. Those Vikings able to continue to just keep constant pressure on these units. And now as soon as that Banshee gets taken down, if that Banshee gets taken down, these Vikings will perhaps be able to land it on the backside and perhaps take down some of these SCVs as well. So Viking just trying to see if they can get within range. That one Banshee down to 35 hit points, getting pulled away once again. Marines now trying to come in, trying to get in a couple of 3 shots. Vikings quickly land on the ground, able to finish off the rest of that army. Are they going to jump back into the air? Able to jump back into the air. However, a second Siege Tank already come in from iFunkYou to replace the one that was already destroyed. iFunkYou also now getting a command center at his natural, so we'll be able to get the economic advantage. Siege Tank, perhaps from Fargo, and not quite sure why went down to that lower ground to perhaps just try to come up on this upper ground. Siege Tank going to be able to destroy that single SCV, however, and now in comes that Banshee. Stay tuned for part 2 of this replay between FunkYou and Fargo here on Desert Oasis.